The autumn wind swept across the kingdom of Arundel, carrying fallen leaves through the narrow streets of Ravensshire. Merchants hurried to close their stalls before evening rain arrived, while nobles prepared for the grand harvest masquerade that would take place inside Blackmoor Palace. For most of society, the celebration was simply another opportunity to display wealth and influence. For Lady Alara Ashford, it was another evening she wished to avoid. She stood beside the small window of her family's aging manor overlooking the countryside. The estate had once belonged to one of the wealthiest families in the region. Now the gardens were neglected, the walls showed signs of age, and the servants had become fewer with each passing year. Alara's father, Lord Theodore Ashford, had spent years trying to preserve appearances despite mounting debts. Every season brought new financial troubles, yet he continued hosting dinners and attending noble gatherings as though nothing had changed. Appearance mattered more than truth in aristocratic society. Alara understood that lesson better than anyone. At 22 years old, she had become nearly invisible among the nobility. Not because she lacked beauty. Her dark chestnut hair, intelligent eyes, and graceful manner often attracted attention when people bothered to notice her. The problem was her family. Ruined families produced inconvenient daughters. And inconvenient daughters rarely received invitations worth accepting. "You should be preparing," her father said while entering the room. Alara turned from the window. "For what?" "The harvest masquerade." Her expression remained calm. "I thought we agreed I would stay home." "We agreed no such thing. The palace is filled with people who enjoy humiliating others. Then give them no reason to." She almost laughed. Reason had very little to do with cruelty. Theodore adjusted his cuffs nervously before continuing. "The Crown Prince himself may attend. Important alliances will be discussed. None involving us." His face tightened slightly. "We are still members of the nobility." "Only technically." Silence followed. Her father looked older than he had a year ago. Failure aged men quickly. "I know things have been difficult," he said quietly. "But hiding from society will not improve our situation." Alara softened slightly. "I am not hiding." "Then attend." She wanted to refuse. Yet she knew arguing further would accomplish nothing. "Very well." That evening, hundreds of carriages surrounded Blackmoor Palace. Golden light poured from enormous windows while musicians performed within halls large enough to house entire villages. Noble families arrived wearing silks, jewels, and carefully constructed smiles. Alara entered quietly beside her father. No one noticed. That suited her perfectly. The grand ballroom shimmered beneath hundreds of candles suspended from crystal chandeliers. Laughter echoed across polished marble floors while aristocrats moved through the crowd discussing politics, marriage arrangements, and family fortunes. Every conversation felt identical. Every smile seemed rehearsed. Alara remained near the edge of the room, observing rather than participating. That was when Lord Cedric Hawthorne spotted her. Cedric possessed wealth, influence, and a cruel sense of humor that made him popular among the wrong people. His companions followed closely behind. "Lady Alara," he called loudly. Several nearby guests turned immediately. Alara already knew trouble was coming. "Lord Cedric. What a delightful surprise. I suspect only one of us believes that." A few people laughed softly. Cedric's smile sharpened. "I heard your father sold another parcel of land this summer." The surrounding crowd grew noticeably quieter. There it was. The humiliation she expected. "My father's financial decisions are not particularly interesting." "On the contrary." His companions chuckled. "I find them fascinating." Alara maintained her composure. Years of social cruelty had taught her one valuable lesson. Never provide satisfaction. Cedric stepped closer. Tell me, Lady Alara. When the estate finally disappears, will you miss it? A few nobles looked uncomfortable. Most looked entertained. Nobody intervened. They never did. My future concerns me considerably less than your obsession with it, Alara replied. Several people covered smiles. Cedric's expression darkened. Before he could answer, movement near the ballroom entrance drew attention away from them. The Duke of Ravensshire had arrived. Duke Adrian Blackwood. The most powerful nobleman in the kingdom. Conversation stopped almost instantly. Even Cedric turned. Adrian entered the ballroom dressed entirely in black formal attire trimmed with silver embroidery. Tall, composed, and utterly unreadable, he moved through the crowd with the quiet confidence of a man accustomed to obedience. Unlike most nobles, he seemed completely indifferent to admiration. Whispers followed him everywhere. Some claimed he was ruthless. Others claimed he cared for nothing except power. No one truly knew. Alara had never spoken to him. She doubted he even knew she existed. Cedric suddenly smiled. A dangerous smile. Perhaps we should ask His Grace a question. Alara immediately disliked the idea. Cedric raised his voice. Your Grace. The Duke paused. Every eye in the ballroom shifted toward him. Cedric continued before anyone could stop him. Lady Alara was just sharing her opinions regarding dignity and social worth. Perhaps you might settle our discussion. The trap became obvious. Adrian looked toward them calmly. For the first time, his gaze settled on Alara. The room seemed to hold its breath. Cedric smiled broadly. Would a woman from a ruined family still deserve respect among the nobility? The cruelty behind the question was unmistakable. Several guests lowered their eyes. Others waited eagerly. Alara felt heat rise in her cheeks but refused to look away. She expected indifference. Perhaps amusement. Instead, the Duke studied Cedric with visible disappointment. What an extraordinarily small question. The ballroom fell silent. Cedric blinked. Your Grace. Adrian's voice remained calm. A person's worth is not determined by their family's finances. No one moved. No one spoke. The Duke continued. If that were true, half the men in this room would become irrelevant tomorrow. A few startled laughs escaped before quickly disappearing. Cedric's face turned pale. Adrian stepped closer. The fact that you find another person's hardship entertaining says considerably more about you than it does about Lady Alara. The silence became suffocating. For the first time all evening, Cedric had nothing to say. The Duke then turned toward Alara. His expression softened almost imperceptibly. Lady Alara. She managed a respectful nod. Your Grace. For a moment neither spoke. Something unexpected passed between them. Curiosity. Recognition. Neither understood it yet. Then Adrian extended his hand. The entire ballroom froze. Dance with me. Shock swept through the crowd. Alara stared at him. Surely she had misunderstood. The Duke repeated calmly. Unless you object. Nobody had seen Adrian Blackwood request a dance in nearly 2 years. Certainly not from a woman society considered insignificant. The ballroom waited. Every noble in attendance watched. Alara should refuse. Accepting would create endless gossip. Yet something in his eyes stopped her. There was no mockery there. No pity. Only sincerity. Slowly, she placed her hand in his. The room erupted into whispers. Music began moments later. And as Adrian guided her onto the dance floor beneath the glittering chandeliers, neither of them realized that a single dance would begin a story capable of changing both their lives forever. The following weeks transformed everything. What began as a single dance at Blackmoor Palace quickly became the most discussed topic in the kingdom of Arundel. Every drawing room, every noble gathering, and every private dinner seemed to revolve around one question. Why was Duke Adrian Blackwood interested in Lady Alara Ashford? No one could understand it. The Duke possessed immense wealth, powerful political influence, and the admiration of nearly every noble family in the kingdom. Alara possessed none of those advantages. The mystery only fueled society's fascination. Unfortunately, fascination often attracted jealousy. Especially from Lady Vivian Montrose. Vivian was beautiful, wealthy, and had spent years believing she would eventually marry Adrian Blackwood. Although the Duke had never encouraged her hopes, he had never openly rejected her either. Now all of London believed another woman had captured his attention. Vivian hated that woman. The hostility began subtly. Whispers during social gatherings. Cruel comments disguised as concern. Carefully planted rumors regarding Alara's family debts. But each attempt failed. Because Adrian seemed completely indifferent to gossip. If anything, he appeared more interested in Alara with each passing week. One afternoon, Alara attended a literary gathering at Rosehaven Manor. The event was intended to celebrate poetry and philosophy. Instead, most guests spent their time discussing marriage prospects. Alara sat quietly near a large window overlooking the gardens while reading a collection of ancient poems. For once, she enjoyed the silence. Most people attend these events to be noticed. The familiar voice caused her heart to betray her. She looked up. Adrian stood beside her. Despite seeing him several times since the masquerade, she still found his presence unexpectedly overwhelming. "You noticed me," she replied. His eyes held amusement. "I generally do." Her pulse quickened immediately. Annoying. Very annoying. The Duke sat opposite her. "What are you reading?" "A collection of old poems." "Worth reading?" "That depends." "On what?" She closed the book gently. "Whether you enjoy sadness." To her surprise, Adrian nodded. "I understand sadness better than happiness." The answer caught her off guard. For a brief moment she saw something hidden beneath his calm exterior. Loneliness. The realization unsettled her. Because it looked familiar. "That sounds unfortunate," she said softly. "It is." Neither spoke for several seconds. The silence felt comfortable. Natural. Alara realized she rarely experienced comfortable silence with anyone. Most conversations demanded performance. With Adrian, she never felt pressure to become someone else. The thought frightened her. Meanwhile, across the room, Lady Vivian observed everything. Every glance. Every smile. Every moment of quiet understanding. And her anger grew. Several days later, invitations arrived for the king's autumn banquet. The event represented one of the most important social occasions of the year. Nobles from across the kingdom would attend. Political alliances would be discussed. Marriage negotiations would begin. Fortunes would rise and fall. The entire kingdom would be watching. Alara considered declining. Unfortunately, her father refused. "You must attend. I would rather wrestle wolves. They might be more polite than some nobles." She laughed despite herself. The banquet took place inside the royal palace. Hundreds of candles illuminated enormous marble halls while musicians filled the air with elegant melodies. Every noble family had arrived. Including Vivian Montrose. Including Cedric Hawthorne. And most importantly, Adrian Blackwood. The evening began peacefully. For nearly 2 hours, Elara managed to avoid attention. Then disaster arrived. As guests gathered around the grand dining hall, a royal servant approached the king's table carrying an important diplomatic document. Halfway across the room, he slipped. The document fell. Wine spilled. Chaos erupted. The servant froze in terror. The king's expression darkened immediately. Before anyone could understand what happened, Lady Vivian stepped forward dramatically. "Your Majesty," she announced loudly. "I believe I saw Lady Elara speaking with the servant earlier." The room fell silent. Elara stared at her. Vivian continued. "It seemed unusual at the time. Perhaps now we understand why." The accusation struck like lightning. Gasps spread through the hall. The implication was obvious. Sabotage. Many nobles immediately believed it. Not because evidence existed. Because people often preferred scandal over truth. The king turned toward Elara. "Lady Ashford." Every eye focused on her. She felt humiliation rising within her chest. Yet she refused to panic. "I had nothing to do with this." Vivian sighed dramatically. "Of course you would deny it." Several nobles nodded. Others whispered. The servant himself looked terrified. Elara realized something horrible. No one intended to defend her. Then Adrian stood. The simple movement silenced the entire hall. The Duke rarely displayed emotion. Tonight was different. His eyes had become dangerously cold. "Interesting," he said quietly. No one spoke. Adrian's gaze settled on Vivian. "You seem remarkably eager to accuse someone without evidence." Vivian faltered. "I only mentioned what I observed." "No." His voice remained calm. "You mentioned what benefits you." The room became completely silent. Adrian continued. "The servant slipped because the floor was wet." Several guests looked toward the polished marble. Indeed, droplets of wine remained visible. A nearby servant immediately confirmed it. The accused servant collapsed with relief. But Adrian was not finished. His gaze never left Vivian. "You attempted to destroy an innocent woman's reputation for personal gain." Vivian's face lost all color. "Your Grace, I." Enough. The single word carried extraordinary authority. No one dared interrupt. For the first time all evening, Elara understood why powerful men feared Adrian Blackwood. His anger required no shouting. No threats. His presence alone dominated the room. Vivian lowered her eyes. Completely defeated. The king himself finally spoke. "It appears Lady Ashford has been treated unfairly." Several nobles suddenly became very interested in their food. Cowards. The banquet continued shortly afterward. Yet the atmosphere had changed. Everyone knew what they had witnessed. The Duke had publicly defended Elara. Not out of obligation. Not out of courtesy. Because he cared. That realization spread through society faster than wildfire. Later that evening, Elara escaped onto a palace balcony overlooking the moonlit gardens. Cool autumn air helped calm her thoughts. At least, it did until Adrian appeared. "You have a habit of finding me." He leaned against the stone railing. "You have a habit of disappearing." She smiled despite herself. "Thank you." His expression softened slightly. "For what?" "For helping me. I merely told the truth. You could have remained silent." Adrian looked toward the distant gardens. I could have. The answer carried unusual weight. Elara studied him carefully. Why didn't you? For the first time since meeting him, Adrian seemed uncertain. Only briefly. But she noticed. Finally he answered. Because watching people hurt you has become increasingly difficult. The confession stole her breath. Neither looked away. The distance between them suddenly felt smaller. The world quieter. More intimate. A cool breeze lifted strands of her hair. Without thinking, Adrian reached forward and gently brushed them away from her face. The touch lasted only seconds. Yet it felt infinitely longer. Neither moved. Neither spoke. Elara could hear her own heartbeat. Adrian's eyes remained fixed on hers. Slowly. Carefully. He stepped closer. The atmosphere changed instantly. Every instinct warned her to move. She could not. For the first time in years, someone looked at her as though she mattered. Not because of wealth. Not because of status. Not because of obligation. Simply because she was Elara. The realization terrified her. Because she wanted to believe it. And wanting made people vulnerable. Still, as Adrian stood beneath the moonlight only inches away, Elara realized something impossible to ignore. She was beginning to fall in love with the one man capable of breaking her heart. Winter arrived early that year. Snow covered the hills surrounding Ravensheim, transforming the countryside into a landscape of silver and white. The roads became quieter, noble families retreated into their estates, and society temporarily abandoned its endless search for scandal. Yet one rumor refused to disappear. Lady Elara Ashford and Duke Adrian Blackwood. Every noble in the kingdom seemed convinced an engagement would soon be announced. Unfortunately, nobody had informed Elara. She sat near the fireplace inside Ashford Manor while pretending to read. The same page had remained open for nearly 20 minutes. Her thoughts constantly returned to Adrian. The balcony. His touch. The way he had looked at her beneath the moonlight. Nothing felt simple anymore. Before meeting him, her future seemed predictable. Now every certainty had disappeared. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Come in. Her father entered carrying a letter. His expression immediately worried her. What happened? Theodore hesitated. Then handed her the envelope. The royal seal was unmistakable. Elara opened it quickly. As she read, her face lost color. What is it? Her father asked. She lowered the letter slowly. The crown has demanded immediate payment of our debts. Silence filled the room. Both understood the consequences. The amount listed was impossible. If the debt remained unpaid, Ashford Manor would be seized within 30 days. Everything would be lost. The house. The land. Their family name. Everything. For several moments neither spoke. Finally Theodore sat heavily in a nearby chair. I tried to prevent this. Elara immediately crossed the room. This is not your fault. It is exactly my fault. His voice sounded exhausted. Older than she had ever heard it before. I failed your mother. I failed this family. Now I have failed you. Tears threatened to appear in her eyes. You have never failed me. But neither of them truly believed it. Across the kingdom, someone else received the news before sunset. Adrian Blackwood. The moment he learned about the Ashford debts, he left for Ravensheim immediately. By nightfall his carriage arrived outside the manor. Elara was standing beside the window when she saw it. Her heart reacted instantly. Moments later, Adrian entered the drawing room. One look at her face told him everything. The rumors are true. She nodded. The estate will be taken. No. The certainty in his voice surprised her. Adrian stepped closer. It will not. Adrian. I can pay every debt before sunrise. The offer came without hesitation. Without conditions. Without negotiation. Elara stared at him. You cannot simply purchase my future. His eyes never left hers. I am trying to protect it. The room fell silent. For several seconds neither moved. Then Elara shook her head. I cannot accept. Frustration flashed across his face. Why? Because I need to know you are helping me because you care about me, not because you pity me. The word struck deeper than she intended. Adrian looked away briefly. For the first time since meeting him, genuine emotion broke through his composure. When he looked back, there was no distance left between them. No walls. No protection. Only honesty. I am in love with you. The room became completely silent. Elara stopped breathing. The confession felt larger than the world itself. Adrian continued quietly. I tried to ignore it. His voice remained steady. I tried to convince myself it was temporary. He took another step forward. It was not. Her heart pounded violently. I think about you constantly. The honesty in his eyes made it impossible to look away. When something good happens, I want to tell you first. Another step. When something terrible happens, I worry about you before myself. Another. When you are unhappy, I cannot sleep. Tears filled Elara's eyes. Adrian stopped only inches away. I love you, Elara. The word settled between them. Simple. Powerful. Real. For months she had feared this moment. Feared loving someone enough to lose herself. Feared trusting another person completely. Feared becoming vulnerable. But standing before Adrian now, she finally understood something important. Love had never been the enemy. Fear was. The realization changed everything. Slowly, she reached for his hand. Adrian looked almost stunned. A rare sight. Elara smiled through tears. You are extraordinarily stubborn. A faint laugh escaped him. I have been told that. She stepped closer. So have I. Neither looked away. For the first time, there were no doubts remaining. No misunderstandings. No barriers. Only truth. I love you too. The words transformed his expression completely. Relief. Happiness. Disbelief. All at once. For a man normally so controlled, the emotion was remarkable. Elara had never seen him smile like that before. Not once. And suddenly she understood she wanted to spend the rest of her life seeing it again. Adrian gently touched her face. His voice became almost a whisper. You have no idea what those words mean to me. Before she could answer, he kissed her. Softly. Carefully. As though she were something precious. Snow continued falling outside while the world beyond the manor disappeared completely. Nothing existed except the two of them. For the first time, Elara felt safe. Not because Adrian could protect her. Because she trusted him. Several weeks later, Blackmoor Palace hosted the Grand Winter Ball. Every noble family in the kingdom attended. The ballroom glittered beneath thousands of candles while musicians filled the air with celebration. Excitement spread through the crowd. Everyone expected an announcement. Nobody knew exactly what. Then Adrian and Elara entered together. The room immediately fell silent. Whispers erupted. Smiles appeared. Even the king seemed amused. Adrian guided Alara toward the center of the ballroom. Every eye followed them. Then the duke turned toward the assembled nobility. His voice carried easily across the room. "Tonight I wish to announce my engagement to Lady Alara Ashford." For 1 second the ballroom remained completely silent. Then applause erupted everywhere. The sound echoed through the palace. Many guests celebrated sincerely. Others merely pretended. Neither mattered. The only opinion Adrian cared about stood beside him. Alara. She looked radiant beneath the candlelight. Happy. Truly happy. Perhaps for the first time in years. As applause continued, Adrian quietly took her hand. "You once told me society enjoys watching people fail." She smiled. "It does. Then perhaps we should disappoint them." Alara laughed. A genuine laugh. The sound immediately became his favorite thing in the world. Months later, spring returned to Arundel. Flowers bloomed across the countryside. The Ashford debts had disappeared. The estate flourished once more. And inside Blackmore Palace, a wedding unlike any seen in decades brought together nobles from every corner of the kingdom. When Alara walked down the aisle, she saw only one person. Adrian. Waiting. Smiling. Certain. The same man who had defended her when nobody else would. The same man who saw her worth before anyone else noticed it. The same man she loved completely. As they exchanged vows beneath sunlight streaming through stained glass windows, Alara realized something remarkable. The greatest change in her life had begun with a single dance. One unexpected moment. One act of kindness. And one man brave enough to choose her when the rest of the world looked away. From that day forward, neither of them faced life alone again. And for the first time, the future looked brighter than any dream either of them had ever imagined. Red Heart Fire.